Welcome everyone to Autogefühl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars. Today with Thomas and a very special episode because today we got a Ferrari. It's a California T actually. It's a new model, well not entirely new, but T says it now has a turbo. The first turbo for Ferrari since 1992 in the serial production. And we're going to find out if this is a right decision and in general talk about the exterior, the interior, the competitors of this car and of course, well, it says California. It means it's also an open top car. We can open the roof and it will be very exciting how it looks open actually. So we will have a lot of fun with this car and of course it will be all about the performance and the sound, but also about a relaxing cruise. So join us here for our review. So first some general information about the car. The name actually, California, I think one of the best names in the automotive industry because everyone knows, everyone has a connection, with California. A lot of sun, warm weather, everything is great, relaxing. So I think it's a very fitting name. It has been used for Ferrari before actually. It was in 1957, there was a 250 GT Spider California. But then, well, it has got lost on its way. Then again, 2008, this very car was introduced and it has been revised sometimes. Actually, last time, now in 2014 with this turbo. Before, well, we had one change where it got a little bit more horsepower. But now, the recent facelift here, it's not only about the turbo inside, it's the most crucial change, but we also got some changes in the exterior now. In general, I think just from the lower front you can't be mistaken, it's really a Ferrari. I like the small Italian number plate, by the way. We in Germany we often have these very huge number plates, which quite often look quite ugly also. But here now in this kind of facelifted version, in the T version, the turbo version, you see the headlights are drawn back a little bit more. They are slimmer. They fly to the back part of the car. Also a little bit slimmer. That makes the car, well, not that broad from the front, a little bit more, maybe like a raindrop falling back. So the whole car looks a little bit slimmer, and that's also a theme that is carried out in the back, because if you also see it here towards the back, well, it has of course strong shoulders, but the shoulders are not as strong as they used to be. In the side profile we see massive 20-inch alloys, red brake calipers as a contrast, and you always have to be careful not to scratch the alloys. But you see, we got these tires again that have some protection. They're a little bit overlapping, and I really love that if that's actually happening. Well, from the side, some do mistake it for some kind of other brand. I've seen it, well, it arouses a lot of attention. All the people, when I'm just driving around. But then sometimes people are, oh, wait a minute, you see in their faces, what car is it? What brand is it? And then one thing helps, the big logo right at the side. And now I'm getting to the other side because then you can take a clear look from the side here actually. And well, I'm not really saying it's clear that it's a Ferrari from the side profile, or what's your opinion on that one? And soon you will also see it, how it looks when the open top is activated, because then, in my opinion, it looks even more beautiful. But so far, let's first on move to the rear. So in the rear we got round headlights. That's kind of classic style, not quite often used anymore in the automotive industry. Here they wanted to be a little bit unique, maybe a little bit more classical. What has changed here with the California T is the arrangement of the exhaust pipes. They're just now classical next to each other. They were, vertically aligned before. Now it's this classic layout, and I actually do prefer it. And we got a massive diffuser here in the lower part. and you can actually use it because this car is actually suitable for the racetrack. Let's get to the heart of the car. It's this 3.9 liter V8. As I said earlier, it's now the turbo, so it has even more power. 0.5 seconds faster in the acceleration now than the previous model without the turbo. 3.6 seconds from 0 to 100 and 11.5 seconds from 0 to 200. Well, these are impressive figures, but of course we do expect that from a Ferrari. Here in Germany, by the way, the list price is about 184,000 euros. Actually a lot of money, but you have to remember, for example, a Porsche 911 Turbo S Cabriolet is even more expensive. A little less expensive, another competitor, Mercedes SL AMG 63, and that one's actually less expensive then, but I would say these ones, the AMG SL and the 911 Turbo S Cabriolet, I think these ones are the main competitors here for the Ferrari. Of course, here you got the Italian style. You already see it at the red cover here at the engine. First of all, also, it looks a little bit like fabric, but that's of course nonsense because fabric wouldn't last these temperatures. But it looks a little bit from the surface. Of course, don't touch it because it can get hot. It's just a little rough surface here, but beautifully done, this engine layout. Or what's your opinion on that one? By the way, just one close-up here at the alloys. I think they're very beautiful, and the carbon ceramic disc brakes, really massive, and you know they don't create this fading effect. They don't overheat on the racetrack. Then for street use, well, you actually don't need it. And just a close-up here of the Brembo brakes, the brake calipers in the red contrast color. You see the general car is silver. I actually would prefer a Ferrari in red like the brake caliper, but what's your opinion on that? Fitting these classic styles of the car is also the key, a standard key, but in red. And some attachment to this one here. You open it and it beeps a little bit. And then you can open the door. You see the interior styling here. We don't have the red on the exterior, but we do have it on the interior. It's another proof, of course, that animal skin, so-called leather, has nothing to do with any natural material anymore because it's chemically processed. Have you ever seen an animal with a red skin? Actually, no. You know, I would prefer Alcantara or Dynamica seats here, these cloth seats, but we don't have them right here. And you see the form of the seats is also a little bit strange. It looks like a salad bowl, very broad, and you know, it doesn't have a flat seating area, and then these accentuated sides. It's a salad bowl in itself, and I can already tell you now that is not actually that good, at least for my body. But just from the design part of the interior, it is very beautifully executed. For example, also the design scheme is carried out over everywhere. The engine start button in red, for example, or the red contrast stitches at the inside of the steering wheel. That is really beautifully done. Or if we move on to the inside of the doors, you can see the same scheme here. And you could have actually easily do that with forks leather, or also with some very interesting Alcantara material or something like that. I would have wished it at this case, but just from the design part, it is very beautifully done. We can also see it from the other perspective. Same at the co-driver side. You requested that we change perspectives here in the interior quite often. I like the California T logo here at the co-driver side. It is also very nice. This, by the way, is standard glove box, very small actually, but it's sliding down very smoothly. Actually, my favorite part is the upper one here, because we have this really cockpit style vents. Also with the inside instruments, we later on see the turbocharge in here. Here with this Ferrari sign, this area is actually very nice. Also that the screen isn't that prominent, because in the Ferrari it doesn't really have to be. And I can also show you actually how that looks. First of all, I'll put the key in to turn on the ignition. You see the steering wheel then comes a little bit down. This is actually the GPS and stuff and radio. And well, it is quite often with some exclusive luxury cars that you have a great car with a great design and whoa, that is a lot of air vent. I've turned it off now. But then the GPS is really weird and it is the same stuff here. You see it is actually very old looking, and if you zoom in or so, it takes ages, and it's actually that slow that you don't really want to process it. Also with connecting the iPhone, I had with Bluetooth here, I had some problems. Actually, it didn't work instantly. So it's like I said, quite often these Apple CarPlay is available actually here, but you have to have an iPhone 5 for it. But in general, the multimedia system is a little bit weird. What is quite good is that the temperature controls are still quite classic. Easy control of this one here, where the air is actually coming from. And very interesting here, the lower part console, where you can actually put the gears, like for reverse. This is auto when you just want to have the car automatically shifting. And a launch button, I'll tell you later on what about that one. This is really very interesting. And you see, to put up the windows, it's actually right here in the central. It's not at the inside of the doors. The middle console here, again, yes, I do criticize that real leather is used, but just from design part, very beautifully done. Also with this very slim armrest here. You can only flip it up to one side. Then you've got USB ports in here and power supply, 12 volt. Yeah, that's the basic interior view. What else is there to say? Yeah, maybe let's focus something on the steering wheel. So the steering wheel, one of my favorite parts, has a great flattened end and also nice grip handle here. By the way, it's quite funny. You don't have the classic turning indicator column. You have to press it here. And that's actually the activating the turning indicator right and left. Another special is that you can start the engine right here. We'll also soon hear the sound. Here you can change the damper settings. And here, this is for the general setting, comfort or sport, better throttle input, turning up the gears higher, and then the final mode, ESC off. And then when you turn the ESC off, the launch control does also work. I'll show you that later on while driving. Of course, the launch control, one of the most fun things here. And what I find quite beautiful from the yellow Ferrari logo, there's a corresponding yellow background in the RPM meter, and as we use from Ferrari and also very powerful sports cars, you got the RPM meter in the central. This one is the big instrument, and just the tempo, the tachometer at the right part a little bit smaller. At the left part then you can, for example, show some driving statistics or something like that. And by the way, I know you love details. This one here is actually the cruise control. You see, in the Ferrari, the cruise control is the pit speed. That you don't exceed the maximum the maximum speed that's allowed in the pit lane. And it's a little bit complicated. You have to hold it a little bit longer, and then you can adjust it to plus or minus. So, but it's actually a normal cruise control. So, to show you the open top, I first of all start the engine. That's a little bit strange, but actually it is the case here that the battery is sometimes too weak to move the roof when the engine is not turned on. And well, I'm not really a fan of this hard-off mechanism. Also doesn't is actually not too fast, and you have to be standing still. You can't even go at slow speeds. Now it's closed. Sorry, now it's open. And maybe you have checked down how many seconds it did take to open it. Also, I can lower the windows. By the way, you can lower and higher both parts now, and then you have to press the window button again. Then the back part is closed. That's actually good for reducing the wind noise. There's also a wind cut available for this very model, but we don't have it here in our test vehicle. Well, what do you think? Do you think it's more beautiful this way with an open top, or is it maybe more beautiful with a close-up? Want to see your comments on that one. Clearly, I think it's more beautiful when the roof is open. I think the shoulders in the back part here, they're also more prominent when the roof is opened. And as it's open now, we can also take a better look at the rear emergency seats. You always have them now with California T. Well, it's more for luggage, maybe for a child seat, but I don't really have to test it. even if I put the seat a little bit more in the front, it has no real use actually. But always a good chance to have another overview here. And I just take a seat at the co-driver for a second also to test that one. And as I've already told you or mentioned, as you have this salad bowl seating, it can be quite slim at the sides. You know, when you have really a flattened seat area and then a lot of support at the side, then the seat can be very comfortable and also sporty at the same time. Here the salad bowl setup, I don't really like it. At least it's not suiting my body in this case. As a co-driver, you do have a little bit more space. And well, from the space that is offered here, also tall people will be quite okay. By the way, one interesting detail also at the steering wheel, I forgot, the horn is actually quite here. You see the horn symbol here, and you just press it here with your thumb. Let's see what trunk is left here when we open. So you see, this is actually what's left. This cover has to remain in place. When the roof is actually closed, you can lift it up to have a better loading possibility. But you know, I would only load a convertible that way. I can always use this one here. You see, there's not really much space left, but for some grocery shopping, it's okay. Here, by the way, if you want to repair your Ferrari yourself. Let's now finally get to driving, and it's always a pleasure to turn that car on, pressing the engine start-stop button. Ooh. And then it's actually quite funny, you sort of, oh, where do I put the gear in? And well, it's quite easy. Just use that one. So then you can start driving. And actually when you drive this car very slowly, it's also not that loud. So it's actually no problem drive it in the city also without arousing too much attention then. And what is quite funny, when I stop, and then most automatic gearbox cars, when I lift the brake, they just run a little bit. That's not the case here. I really have to put the throttle a little bit just. So I'm also now in the comfort mode. They have made the dampers a little bit stiffer with the California T model here now. But still the car is very well drivable just from the suspension. It's not this very, very stiff sports car. You can still do your everyday cruising with that one. So it's also quite comfortable on the long term when you're on some country roads. That's actually no problem at all. So the overall suspension setup, I think I like it. It's a good compromise between a sporty ride and still you have enough comfort. The steering wheel, I can always say now, for a Ferrari I would have liked a little bit more direct input. I can, however, go from a comfort to a sport mode. Then the steering wheel is a little bit stiffer, but if I compare it with other very, very sporty cars, the steering input reacts a little bit faster, and I would have wished that one here also for the Ferrari. Also when I'm in this sport mode here now, the gears are turning higher in the RPMs, and well, that's actually quite a good thing then, because then we can also hear the sound very well. So let's see if we got a clear trick. First gear. I think let's hammer the throttle. That was not until the bottom, of course. Now again. Did you hear that one? That clicking sound when shifting up, that is really very, very beautiful. And I think that's also a great thing about this car. If you really hammer the throttle, you can have a very, very sporty, very spectacular feeling here. But also if you just let the car flow a little bit, suddenly it gets to a very good cruising car. And well, very seldom have it with some cars, because a lot of cars either go in the one or in the other direction. But here actually both is fun, driving sporty and doing this cruising stuff. You know, I've talked to you earlier saying that this one is rather the most drivable Ferrari. I can really confirm that here while driving. You don't have the feeling, oh, I'm in a super spectacular super sports car and oh, it's so hard to drive and it's totally stiff, and if I press the throttle then everything explodes. And you can really drive this car even if you don't have supercar experience, and I think that's a very good thing, and Ferrari does really need such a car like this one here. So I think it's very important for the brand not only to have the top super sports car, but also, well, maybe you can use it as an entry to the world of Ferrari here. But just for me, I would not only pick it as an entry, but also as the top Ferrari model, because it has an open top and it's for sure the most comfortable Ferrari. So actually I can say already right now, from design and also from the driving, if you tell me, Thomas, which Ferrari would you pick, would be definitely that one, because you can really enjoy it. And great, really great. Do you like that? I hope so. And by the way, there's also this third mode I can choose here on the steering wheel, that is ESC off, and then if I pick the launch button here, then I can also preload. A little bit of a wheel spin there. That was due to the launch control, and yeah, well, what does it really do? Normally without the launch control, you cannot really turn up the RPMs when standing still. If you have put the ESC off and then also put the launch control, then it was possible to preload the RPM and then to have an even more boosting start. And that is really a lot of fun, I can promise you, but I think you've seen and heard that. Let me conclude about the Ferrari California T. Is it good that they have used a turbo now? Well, I would maybe have rather preferred still the naturally aspirated engine. But you know, the manufacturers put the turbos in to get more power, but on paper the consumption goes down. Well, for the customer maybe not, but that's just the way it works nowadays. However, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you have a little bit more power here. This car always has plenty of power, and had a lot of fun driving it, and it aroused really a lot of attention. Even if it wasn't here in Ferrari red, people were really looking all around, because nowadays in the Porsche you can't really arouse so much attention. For example, in Germany, a Porsche 911 is the most sold sports car, even if it's per weight not the most. The cheapest car, actually, the cheapest sports car. So with this car, you definitely have a lot of attention here, no matter in what color it is. And well, just from the driving here, I think I expect a little bit more racing style, especially from the steering wheel. From the power here, really superb, I must say. That's not, but the steering wheel could be a little bit more direct. Also, I wasn't quite keen on the form of the seats, but I can still confirm it is definitely the most drivable Ferrari, and that's also the aim of this car. It doesn't have to be this very super sports car like the 458, for example. You can really just use it for cruising, and also the exhaust is quite silent, so it's actually perfectly fine for an everyday use, even if the trunk is okay, not that big, but you have some luggage space here behind the rear seats. So it's actually a Ferrari that everyone can buy when you have the money and still drive it in your everyday driving. That's actually perfectly fine. Not really comparable to the very super sports cars, and I would actually really go for this Ferrari and not for the super sports variant, because these super sports cars, well, they are very spectacular on the one side, but also can be a little bit annoying, you know, when they're too stiff, you get back pain, sitting too low on the road, have to watch that you don't get scratches on the alloy, and so on and so on. So this is really the most drivable Ferrari here, and therefore a lot of enjoyment also possible. Technically really not perfect. I've shown you some of the details that can still be improved. That was also very interesting for me. But I think the most important point of this car is this Italian design on the outside and on the inside. And just design-wise, this was really a pleasure. So these ones were my thoughts about the car. Also want to hear your opinion on all the important aspects of the car. Really looking forward to your comments. You know, I love you guys, and I hope you love Autogefühl. And so I hope we'll also see us at the next episode.